Another figure of speech is personification. Personification is simply attributing human qualities to animals and other inanimate objects. Like things, okay, let's write it down. Attributing human characteristics to non-human things. Like animals and other inanimate objects, when we describe them using human terms, things that are peculiar to humans alone. When you use these words to describe non-humans, you're dealing with personification as a figure of speech. This is mostly found in children's literature. It helps to make things interesting, create like a beautiful picture in their mind while reading. A good example now would be the sun smiles down at us. The sun smiled. The sun is a non-living thing and doesn't possess the ability to smile. But you now saying the sun smiled, that makes it personification. Time waits for no one. So time waits for no one. Time is an abstract concept and it cannot wait. So you're now using the verb wait for time is personification. Don't forget, it helps to create like interesting pictures in the mind. Another figure of speech is anthropomorphism. Anthropomorphism. This is extended personification. Where personification simply attributes, anthropomorphism gives these non-human things the ability, like literally. Let's write a definition. Is giving human traits to, let's say, inanimate objects and animals. Good example are cartoons. So here, where you're saying the sun smiled down at us, and you stop there with just writing it down. The sun smiled down at us, trying to like say that the sun was mild, not so hot. For anthropomorphism, that it will now be you drawing an actual smiling sun. So you don't just stop at attributing, you actually give it that ability. So cartoons are a good example where you have animals living in houses, putting on clothes, cooking their food, sleeping on beds. So giving them the quality, not just describing them with it, but giving them the quality literally becomes anthropomorphism. Next, we have pathetic fallacy. This figure of speech also has to do with giving out human qualities. But for pathetic fallacy, we are dealing with nature alone, nature and nature related objects or natural objects for pathetic fallacy. So for personification, giving human characteristics to non-human things. For anthropomorphism, it's actually giving them the traits, not just attributes. It's actually allowing them to behave like humans. Then for pathetic fallacy, it is simply describing nature or an other natural objects with human terms or human characteristics or traits. So we say this is a literary device in which nature and other natural objects alone are treated like they had human emotions. So pathetic fallacy is limited to nature and natural objects alone, like the weather, sun, clouds, trees, like that, things that are related to nature. A good example of this would be nature abhors vacuum. This statement is thrown around a lot. Nature abhors vacuum. So abhors means to hate. Nature cannot hate or love or like is not capable of any emotion or feeling. But you know, saying nature abhors, giving this human trait to nature, refer to that as pathetic fallacy. Up next, we have hyperbole. Hyperbole is simply a deliberate exaggeration for emphasis. You're trying to like reinforce a particular thing or concept or idea, and then you like over exaggerate, you blow it out of proportion. That is hyperbole. And take note, for hyperbole to like really be effective, the exaggeration should be like to the extreme. Ordinarily, readers or audience are not supposed to take hyperbole in a literal sense, so it should be something that is impossible to do. So you don't even start thinking like, okay, how was he able? No, you're not supposed to take hyperbole in a literal sense. So the exaggeration should be very extreme for it to be effective. That way, you can even be able to differentiate it from just a regular lie. Hyperbole as a figure of speech, deliberate exaggeration for emphasis. Deliberate exaggeration for emphasis. Like I said, ensure that you exaggerate, like exaggerate. So a good example now will be my bag costs the earth. Here you're trying to like emphasize that the bag was expensive, but it's not possible for it to cost the earth. Even if you had the earth, it would be absolutely impossible for you to exchange the earth for just a bag. So here is exaggeration for emphasis. Or I've said this a million times. A million times. Here, you don't want to keep repeating the same thing all over again. So I've said this a million times, it's like an exaggeration. Even if it were possible to say it a million times, who would count it? You would say it and count like okay, like it's literally impossible. So this is exaggeration to the extreme. I've said this a million times. Or the drive here took forever. You're trying to say that it was like a long distance, but forever is like an exaggeration. So that's hyperbole, deliberate exaggeration for emphasis. And it's not meant to be taken literally, just to emphasize. Sometimes it could even be for humor, just to like add humor to a literary piece. You could use hyperbole apart from for emphasis. Another figure of speech you're looking at is litotes. Litotes. Litotes is an understatement, like trying to present a positive statement in a negative manner. when we mean positive statement or positive sentences, it's not your regular meaning of positive, where something is like good. But when we say positive sentence or positive statement, it's simply a statement that expresses a fact. So he is dishonest is a positive statement. When you now say he is not honest, the presence of not or no makes a sentence negative. So lighter text uses these words not or no to downplay sentences. That's lighter text as a figure of speech. An understatement, whereby you are expressing a positive statement in a negative manner. So let's put it down. Is an understatement which expresses a positive statement in a negative manner. For example, instead of you saying something is good, you say it is not bad. Let's see, his idea is not bad. Instead of saying good, you say it's not bad. So it's like positive statement, but you're trying to express it in a negative manner. Take note, negative because there's presence of not here or no. So that's why the sentence is negative. So you say his idea is not bad. And we do this for avoidance. Lightness is good when it comes to avoid. Maybe you want to be political or diplomatic about a situation, you can employ this figure of speech. Or you want to downplay. Most people know that it is most people don't really take criticisms like that easily. So instead of just coming out straight to say you are a very terrible person or you are bad at this, you could use lighter text to downplay the criticism so the person doesn't feel too bad and wants to make a change. Lighter text can also be used to emphasize and then for humor. For example, if you say, I won't freeze to death when the weather is very cold, that's for humor. The weather is so cold and you're like, okay, at least I won't freeze to death. So you're trying to downplay the situation around. This could be used for humor, could be used to downplay or for avoidance. Now let's take note. For it to be light to test, for a sentence to be under this figure of speech, it must be an understatement. So apart from just sentences, still check the context in which these sentences are used. If it is not an understatement, it is not, like for example, leave no stone unturned. There's a presence of no here, making the sentence negative. But that doesn't mean that this is light to this. The person actually wants you to leave no stone unturned. It's actually like for reinforcement. Ensure that you do everything. Don't leave anything behind. So for it to be light to test, ensure that the statement is actually expressing an understatement. The effect must be understatement before it can be grouped under this. So let's take note of that. This is not part of it because here the effect is not an understatement. This is actually reinforcing. Other examples include he's no Prince Charming. When you don't want to say the person is ugly, so maybe you don't want the person to feel bad or who you're talking to, so you can say although he's no Prince Charming. So you know that here you're trying to downplay a situation. The effect is still understatement, or you will not regret it. This statement is mostly used when people newly, like maybe they newly get jobs. So at least it's your first time. You don't want to start promising heaven and earth. So you just like downplay your importance, or you're coming into the company. You don't want to promise, and then after how many months you're not able to deliver. So instead of saying, I will, this is what I'm going to do, you could say, you will not regret this. I promise you, you will not regret this decision. These are examples of litotes. And let's take note, it should have the effect of understatement. And also, litotes is similar to double negative, which is not really advised in writing. Writers should try as much as possible to avoid double negative. Let's say, like a sentence like, you are not unhappy. It's not advisable. Just you say you are not, you are happy rather. So it's like using so many words when there is a word that can cover it. So that's double negative, which is similar to litotes. So if your writing is not litotes, it could become cumbersome. The clarity becomes a problem. So let's take note when using this figure of speech. If you want to employ this technique in your writing, ensure that you are not mixing it up with double negative, which is not the same thing here. This is meant to downplay an understatement. So let's take note of that.